From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Good Sunday and welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Laura Hutchinson. A lot has already happened in the quest to bring casinos to Massachusetts. Since gaming was legalized more than 2 years ago, the Commission has been working to help communities and casino developers work through the process of applying for one of 3 gaming licenses. It is a lengthy and complicated process, so that's where 22 News in Focus comes in today. Today we're going to talk to the chairman of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission about the progress the state has made, controversy along the way, and where we're headed next. Joining us today, we have Stephen Crosby with us, the chairman of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
It's been a while since we had you on.
It has been.
And we have a lot to update everyone.
We're ready. Go for it.
We're ready to go. So why don't you first bring us up to date as to where we are right now. This week, you have a presentation planned for this week. It hasn't happened yet, but we're assuming by the time this program airs, it will happen.
Yep.
So why don't you talk to us about that first of all?
Well, it's a very big week for a lot of reasons. The presentations you're talking about, each of the casino applicants, Western Mass, MGM, and the 2 in Eastern Mass, make a 90-minute live presentation streamed live on the web so all your viewers can see it. That sort of kicks off the formal evaluation process. It gives the commission a chance to see a visual display of what these facilities are supposed to look like, and it gives us a chance to see what the developers think is really important. Those will be what the issues that they talk about. That starts the formal evaluation process that we'll be going through until April or May. In addition, we're closing the evaluation process for the casino applicants. We're shutting down that final application process and that evaluation process in order to make the decision sometime next month. And we are having a big long meeting, assuming the storm doesn't get in the way, on Thursday for a whole host of important issues like the $600 withholding tax issue you may have heard about, and a lot of the operational issues, because we're starting now to get from the licensing phase into getting ready for actual operations.
So what is it? It all really comes down to these presentations now. I'm sure that the different gaming companies have put a lot of resources into this. What is it that the Gaming Commission is looking for? This is now when you're going to start looking for all the jazz that you've been asking for along the way, really.
Well, it's not just jazz. I mean, it's the blocking and tackling, the nuts and bolts, the finance, the community mitigation, the economic development, the site and building design. Those are the basics. You have to have good finances, good economic development, good community mitigation, and a good physical facility. In addition, we have this 5th criteria, which I refer to as the wow factor, where we're hoping bidders will go above and beyond. But we're going to be looking at all of these evaluation criteria. They've been out there in public for more than a year. None of it's a surprise. We have big, comprehensive task forces for each of those 5 categories. Each category is headed up by a commissioner. We have investment bankers, we have traffic engineers, we have other advisors to help us do the evaluation. Those presentations by each of the task forces will be made in public to the other commissioners, and then we'll sit there in public and talk about our decisions. So it's a very comprehensive, very data-driven, very transparent decision-making process.
Now, from what you've seen already from MGM and some of the other developers throughout the state, how confident are you still that there will be 3 resort-style casinos in Massachusetts? Of course, we know the law calls for up to 3, so it's possible that won't happen.
It calls for up to 1 in each of the 3 regions.
Right, 1 in each of the 3 regions. How confident are you that we will get the most that the law allows for?
Well, you know, because we've talked about it, we've been pushing very hard to have robust competition for all the licenses. You know, in Western Mass, you had 5 first-class companies at the outset. So for MGM to be the last bidder standing, they had to go through a very competitive process, the one that Mayor Sarno orchestrated in Springfield, but they also thought they were going to have to compete with Mohegan Sun and Palmer. So MGM, it looks like, has really put its shoulder to the wheel, and it's true with the other bidders as well. They all have had competition. From what we've begun to see of the applications as we've begun to look at them, they've all gone out of their way to be really powerful in terms of job generation, revenue generation, collaboration with local tourism industries, etc. So right now, I'm pretty confident that we will certainly have the 2, Eastern and Western Mass. Nothing's certain, but I think we've got real strong applications. Southeastern Mass, because of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, is a little bit different, a little bit more complicated. But chances are pretty good we'll have one there too at some point.
Was there any sense of relief from the Gaming Commission when you saw voters taking the decision, some of the big decisions, into their own hands in Western Mass? You know, Palmer was voted down, West Springfield was voted down. Of course, Mayor Sarno made the decision between the two proposals in Springfield. Did that sort of ease what could have been a more difficult decision for you? Was there that sense of relief?
Actually not. I would say, if anything, we probably were looking forward to making these decisions. That's what we've been waiting for. You know, we've got this process set up, and we have an evaluation, and we knew how we were going to compare different strengths and weaknesses, so we were actually looking forward to that. So relief, no, but total comfort with it, because this local control element was such an important part of what the legislature came up with. They wanted each city and town to have every right to say no or yes. You don't want it, you don't have it. Period. End of discussion. That's the way the process worked. Fine by us.
Now, we kind of live in this bubble out in Western Mass. You know, we're immersed in our own proposal out here. Has it been as emotional in other parts of the state as it has here? I mean, there's been a whole lot of yes and no's, and other communities voting non-binding referendums to not support. You know, is that happening in other parts of the state?
Well, I think Western Mass had more competition than any other region to begin with. You had the 5 to start. You had a lot of communities that were looking for it. Holyoke was on again, off again, on again, off again. Chicopee was looking for an opportunity. Lots of people wanted to be in Springfield. There was the start in the small town I've forgotten the name of. So you probably had more going on here. But Eastern Mass has been probably every bit as emotional and roller coaster. We had a split vote. We had 2 communities, East Boston and the city of Revere, that were both host communities to the original Suffolk Downs proposal. East Boston voted yes, East Boston voted no, Revere voted yes. What do we do? That caused a big hoo-ha. It was turned down in Milford. An application by Foxwoods was turned down by a vote in Milford. So it's been pretty exciting all across the state. I think it's probably been the lead story, or one of the very lead news stories in all the regions of the state.
Sure, we've been saying it's at least the story that keeps giving.
Absolutely,
There's something to talk about.
We're doing everything we can for you.
Yeah, very good.
Right.
Stephen Crosby, we have so much more to cover, including more specifics about the MGM Casino. There's also been some controversy along the way, so we will talk about that when we get back. So stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're discussing the latest developments in the competition for casino gambling licenses here in Massachusetts. Joining us once again, we have Stephen Crosby, chairman of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. Now, with major endeavors like this, of course, you know that there's always controversy, surrounding it, and you unfortunately have not been able to escape that. One thing that has been brought up is your association with Paul Lonis, the co-owner of a proposed site in Everett, Massachusetts. Do you have any regrets about when you mentioned that you were business partners? What would you like to say about that?
Well, it's all been said pretty much. I complied absolutely. What people need to understand is what the law and what the public interest looks for is making sure that no public official like myself is in a position where a potential relationship could be a conflict when an issue comes before us. It's not just who do you know, not everybody you know out there that might be involved in something. And I was very fastidious about making sure that I filed with the Ethics Commission twice to talk about this relationship with this guy that I was in business with 24 years ago. And there was never any issue before us that I could possibly be affected by the conflict until after I did the filing. The real issue, I think, is, however, that the process is so transparent. I mean, I've done what I should do. That's important. The Ethics Commission said, fine, go back to work, be a commission, do your job, no problem, you're covered. But the process that the public will see is such a public and transparent process, and so data-driven. What I just was describing earlier, 200 different questions, 15,000 pages of applications, where we are using a public, participatory, transparent, data-driven process to move the commission to a decision. The process is designed to be something that protects inherently its integrity. So, you know, I've done everything I can do with respect to the law. The Ethics Commission has been straightforward. I'm totally confident I can be objective about this. And the process, I think, will assure the public that that's the case.
And you did remove yourself from that specific process.
Yeah, it's complicated, but having to do with some issues related to the land itself that this guy is a part owner of. I recused myself from anything having to do with the land issue.
Right, and you think the timing was right on, because I know that there were some who were critical as to the timing, when you chose to, would you have if this didn't, you know, but...
Yeah, I mean, I could have disclosed it earlier, but as I said, there was nothing before the commission, so there was nothing to disclose. There isn't anything to disclose until there is an issue before the commission that might be affected by that relationship.
Okay, and you are personally named in a lawsuit with Caesars as well.
Right.
Caesars is suing you personally. That must have been a bit of a surprise. At least like you were saying, you assume that there will be some lawsuits in this type of process, but maybe not specifically named on one.
Well, personal lawsuits is a little more aggressive and a little more hostile than run-of-the-mill lawsuits, you know, suing the commission. But, you know, we all figured this was going to be a contentious issue. We live in a litigious society. You know, people have their rights to do this. All the relevant parties that are part of it have made statements. We've made our statement. The legal process will now take place. I am totally confident, the rest of the commission is totally confident, that there is no disruption to the integrity of the process. And as I said earlier, the public will see this process. They'll see every word I speak in public about this decision making. So we've thought long and hard about it, and we're absolutely comfortable, all of us, that the process is as it should be, which is transparent, participatory, and fundamentally fair.
Do you think that there are any grounds for that lawsuit at all? I mean, is there anything that concerns you about that, or just totally not found?
Absolutely none. You know, the Investigations and Enforcement Bureau makes its own independent decisions. I was not involved in it at all. You know, we've looked back over the process. It is squeaky clean, which is what it should be, and nothing is more important to me, and you've heard me say this, you know, the integrity of the process is job one. And the appearance of integrity is important too. So we want very much for people to understand what the process is and what we go through and how we get to these conclusions and what each of our individual roles is. Could I possibly influence this in some untoward way, even if I wanted to? But I think reasonable and fair people will watch this process and see that what we are saying is right, that it is absolutely inherently a fair process. Okay,
and bringing it back to Western Massachusetts, our casino proposal, one thing that we've just gotten past, we're still working through the definition of surrounding communities and what constitutes. Have other communities struggled through this as much as Western Mass has? We've had many communities trying to, you know, make themselves a surrounding community. How do you define it as surrounding community, and what do you think, will prevail in this sort of thing? Well, who will prevail, we'll find out. I think Hamden, Northampton, and Longmeadow have petitioned us to be designated as surrounding communities because they've not been able to agree with MGM that whether or not they are a surrounding community. The law, in layman's terms, says you are a surrounding community if you have a material adverse impact by the development of this facility, a material adverse impact. That's my words, but that's essentially the intent of the law. We will look at these circumstances, and we've done this many times. All three slots applicants had contentious relationships with some potential surrounding communities. We had to make decisions about what were surrounding communities. Some of them almost went to arbitration. Eastern Mass now has communities for the Everett proposal, Wynn, and the Revere proposal, Mohegan Sun, with contentious relationships. So we've done a lot of this. We will look at the merits. We will decide whether or not Northampton, Hamden, or Longmeadow do have significant adverse impacts or not, and we will then make our decision. And there's a process. Once we determine if they are a surrounding community, they have 30 days to negotiate with the bidder, MGM and Western Mass,
And if they can't come to a conclusion, then there's a binding arbitration process that we will impose on them. In another 30 days, that will be the end of the game.
Is this something that other casinos do in other states?
No, this is unique to Massachusetts. And, we should take pride in this. There's no other state where surrounding communities have any say at all. In most states, even the host community doesn't have very much say.
Right.
In some states, the host community has no say. In Massachusetts, they have an absolute veto, as you know, and the surrounding communities have to have a mitigation agreement signed before an applicant get approved. So it is a unique extension of the concept of local control and mitigation unique to Massachusetts.
So where did it come from? If not from other states haven't done this, it was just we recognized that it could have a big impact on these surrounding communities.
Yeah, I think it's the wisdom of, frankly, your local nearby Senator Stan Rosenberg, who was one of the main architects of this law. He studied and studied and studied. He went to other jurisdictions. Other members of the House and Senate did too, but Senator Rosenberg was first among them. Right. And he came up with what he thought were really the most important best practices to make this work. And I don't know specifically about this issue, but Massachusetts, as you know, has a long tradition of local control. Sometimes people think too much. But it's one we're committed to, and I think it's working very well in this case. Well,
we'll see how it turns out, who ends up prevailing. Thank you so much. We are going to take a short break.
Okay.
We're with Stephen Crosby, and we will continue this conversation after this. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. We are continuing our conversation today with our guest, Stephen Crosby, the chairman of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. We've talked about the role of the commission and the status of Springfield's application. I want to thank you once again for joining us.
My pleasure.
We were just talking about the definition of surrounding communities and who could ultimately, end up being included in this. One thing I thought interesting was that Massachusetts is pretty unique. Other states haven't done that. That makes that just a little bit more interesting. Now, some communities, West Springfield and Longmeadow, I believe, passed non-binding referendum just to kind of let the state know that they're not in support of the MGM casino proposal, that they were going to have negative impacts. Is that something that the Gaming Commission is looking at? Is that something that would weigh into your decision?
One of the issues is community support. Community meaning the local community as well as surrounding communities. And in a competitive situation, which we don't have in Western Mass, if you had two other proposals that were virtually identical and one had tremendous community support and one had tremendous community opposition, that would be significant. And we have that, for example, in the slots parlor applications. We have some communities that are not very supportive and we have some that are very supportive. So that could be a factor. In the case of MGM, it'll be less because it's not really a relative situation. But the whole process is designed to want to hear from everybody what they think so we can make considered decisions. And maybe there are substantive issues that we can make a condition of the license. We will give these licenses conditioned on certain things. If we think that MGM, I'm just making this up, hypothetically, if we think they should get the license, but that we think they should be more attentive to certain kind of a community issue that we've learned about because of such things as these referenda, we will pay attention to that. So it's not irrelevant. We really want and appreciate public comment whichever way it goes.
Now, does it end up canceling each other out if they have voted on this that they don't support, but the town has been able to come to an agreement with MGM based on their surrounding community?
Yeah, not really. We've been very clear with communities that are opposed, and it's not just here, it's Eastern Mass too, to say, look, you can oppose this if you want to, fight it all you want to. If you want to get involved with the host community referendum, that's your business, do what you want. But also, it might go forward, so you better negotiate a smart surrounding community agreement on behalf of your citizens in case it comes to that. It's a hard track for these folks to walk, to try to, on the one hand, fight it, on the other hand, negotiate a deal. But most of them have done it appropriately, and if Springfield, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Longmeadow, I think that was an appropriate step.
Okay, where are we with the timeline as far as that goes?
Getting close.
Have we stayed pretty much on par from what the initial game plan was?
Well, the one thing that's changed our schedule has been these surrounding community agreements. If they were all locked up before the applications came in, we would have been right on our schedule. Both Slots Parlor and Eastern Mass and Western Mass has been delayed a couple of months because of this. But So we're now scheduled, we have to say worst case, because we don't know whether these surrounding communities will go through the full arbitration process that I talked about. If they do, and we get extended to the far deadlines, we would make this decision for MGM in Western Mass at the end of May. That would be the end of the decision. It could possibly be a month or so earlier, but something like that.
And what about the other casinos in the state? Would that
Eastern Mass will be right around the same time. We may make them a week or so different, but basically we'll be making them around the same time. The slots parlor, which will be either in Leominster, Plainville, or Rainham, assuming we pick one of them, will be made the last week of next month. So it's only about a month from now.
And then what happens from the Gaming Commission's perspective once those decisions are made? I mean, is that, do you continue to oversee through the bidding process and all that? How does that work?
Well, we then become a regulatory agency, and we will be overseeing their work. They have to put shovels in the ground. They have to build the facilities they said they were going to build. They have to do the hiring practices they said they were going to do. They have to pay us a lot of money. There is this overhanging issue of the possible repeal. That is a wild card, and we don't know for sure how that's going to play. Setting that aside, as soon as we make the license decision, everybody goes to work. We become a regulatory agency. They start building, start hiring. The slots parlor should be up and operational in 6 to 12 months. So revenue starts to flow to the state, and then the casinos would be a year to a year and a half after that.
Okay, and so the Gaming Commission sounds like it's one that will be around for many years.
Yeah, this will be in perpetuity. You
Right.
know, I mean, I won't be here in perpetuity, but the Gaming Commission will be here as long as there's a gaming industry.
Well, it certainly has been an interesting process. Have you enjoyed it so far?
You know, I have. It's certainly had its moments of stress, but it's been an incredible experience. Learning to work with 5 commissioners has been interesting. A whole new industry has been
Right.
interesting. The characters are larger than life, many of them.
Right.
Dealing with all the public policy issues that we deal with all the time. What is the surrounding community? What's fair to the Mashpee Wampanoags? It's been fascinating.
It's a huge undertaking,
Yeah.
but you certainly have a positive tone to it. So thank you so much
My
for being
pleasure.
here
Thanks for
and keeping
having
us updated with all that. We'll keep in touch, of
I'll
course.
be back. Yeah, you
Yes,
bet.
we will. And we will have the last word for you after the break. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. We just spent the last half hour talking to Stephen Crosby, chairman of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. We discussed everything from the casino licensing process and the status of the applications across the state, including Springfield's proposal with MGM, also to controversy he's been faced with along the way. He covered a lot of ground with us today. That is our program for today. We want to thank Crosby for joining us. Thanks to you at home for watching. And if you've missed any of it, you can watch it in full on our website at wwlp.com. From all of us here at 22 News, we wish you a wonderful Sunday.